Usually when this passage makes its way back into the lectionary cycle, the focus tends to be on the parable that Jesus told about the selfish rich man who stored up treasures for himself, only to be told his life was being cut short and those treasures were suddenly of no value to him. This week, though, with all the squabbling going on in our country surrounding the presidential campaigns, dirty deals within the political parties, international espionage, and continuing racism within our country, the first sentences of the reading jumped out at me. It feels like a kid running to mom or dad, or maybe their teacher, expecting somebody else to step in and fix an unhappy spot in a relationship. Instead of solving the problem that was being imposed upon Jesus, he gave that problem back to the person presenting it, and basically told him to fix it himself. It occurs to me that perhaps we need to take charge of some of our problems and get busy fixing them ourselves too. Politics in our country has become aggressively ugly. We can do any one of several things. We can join in on the mean name-calling. We can withdraw completely from participating in the process. We can modulate our own words and responses, being careful not to add fuel to the flames of division. Or we can be the answer to the prayer of St. Francis, and we can become instruments of peace, reminding each other to be kind, to use logic and reason rather than bullying with sarcastic and caustic comments. We can demand honesty of the candidates by refusing to accept their statements without investigating for facts. Civil rights seem to be in a crisis. Women are still struggling with inequality in many facets of life. People who do not subscribe to the correct version of Christianity find themselves being pushed further and further toward the margins in our society. Transgender people continue to face discrimination and very real danger for being themselves. All gender and sexuality minorities still wonder whether their jobs are safe or whether someone is going to say something that degrades them. People of color are being subjected to blatant discrimination, and we're all being assaulted by vile, racist comments every time we watch the news or get on Facebook. Naturally, those of us who hope for a better world turn to God, asking for a fix. Help us to do better, God. Make people be nice, God. Open their eyes, their hearts, their minds, God. These are my prayers, over and over again. I pray that God will bring understanding, kindness, wisdom, all the things we need to end all this ridiculous and hideous meanness. But still, the ugliness continues. Black lives still don't matter as much as white lives. Women's lives aren't as important as men's lives. Immigrants' lives aren't as important as people who were born in this country, except, of course, unless those people happen to be Native Americans, in which case their lives really don't matter. Nobody's life matters less than a transgender person's life. Yet this is the nation with the bold statement proclaiming that all men are created equally, endowed by the Creator with inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Even though the authors used the word men, I've always been taught that it was intended in a generic and inclusive sense to mean all people. But I've never seen our society live that promise out as though it is meant for all people. I turn to God, tears in my eyes, begging for a miraculous cure. Fix this mess, please, dear God. And instead of a miracle, we have this scripture reading with a desperate sibling turning to Jesus to solve a dispute, and Jesus saying, "Who sent me to be the judge or arbitrator?" I imagine God hearing my appeals for peace and equality and responding like an absolutely frustrated parent, shaking their head and saying, "Can't you kids play nice? Go work this out yourselves. Suddenly I realize it. There is our miracle answer to the prayer for true peace. Work this out yourselves. Learn to play nicely together. Respect each other. Stop telling lies. Stop being mean. Listen to each other. I'd still rather have God do some really cool God magic, wave a hand over the planet, and fix all this instantaneously. But it's a comfort to know we have the power to make things right ourselves. We don't need a magic wand. We need to take action ourselves, spreading kindness, demanding kindness, speaking up in kindness when we hear or see others being unfair or mean. Life does not have to be this way. Just because this is the way it's always been doesn't mean it's the way it should be. We can fix it. We can do better ourselves, and we can demand better of others. It'll be hard work. It'll mean constantly monitoring our own thoughts, attitudes, and actions. It'll take a conscious effort not to participate in snarkiness and not to retort with a put-down when we encounter a person with whom we disagree. But, like a pebble dropped into a pond, we can start waves that ripple ever wider, bringing civility to all our interactions. We can even contact those in positions of power and authority, telling them we expect better from them. We can contact the campaigns for those running for office, telling them we are no longer listening to their derogatory rhetoric. If you can't tell us why to choose you, tell us nothing. We don't want to hear why not to vote for the other person. Just because there's a way politics have always been done in this country doesn't mean it's the only way to do politics. Just because there's always been racism and sexism and ableism and all the other isms doesn't mean we have to allow them to continue. We won't overcome the bad attitudes by firing back at offenders with equally ugly retorts. We need to remind them in kindness that they can do better. When I did my internship at Chiropractic College, we had a very wise clinic director. The first term of interning, we still had some academic courses. A couple of professors were particularly difficult to deal with that term. We also had a few issues with administration. We didn't like some of the changes they were instituting. Often, we'd leave campus frustrated and angry, spend an hour or more fighting Chicago traffic to get to the clinic, and walk in even more angry than we were when we left campus. The director, sly guy that he was, would invite us into his office for a chat before we started seeing our patients. He knew we were in no frame of mind to be healers, and we needed to get a grip on our own emotions before being turned loose on unsuspecting people. After giving us ample time to spew our complaints about whichever person had ruffled our feathers that day, he'd look at us with the most gentle expression and say, "But he always speaks so highly of you." Invariably, the wind immediately went out of our sails, the anger subsided, and we saw our supposed adversary as a human with another dimension beyond the source of our discontent. We can always diffuse a situation. I'll say that again. We can always diffuse a situation. We can always choose whether we will react or we will respond. Reactions are swift, reflexive, without much thought other than striking back at whatever has struck us. Responses require thought and choice. In our reading today, Jesus is calling us to respond rather than to react. We will have disagreements. People will frustrate us. People will do things that bring out our anger. We decide. Will we react or will we respond? Will we escalate the ugly or will we play nicely together? We're called to be light. called to love. Let us seek to be the solution to the discord in our society. Let us be the peace we've been asking of God. Each of us, one little pebble in the pond at a time, can create a wave of goodness. Each of us, one choice at a time, can be the healers of this fractured society. May it be true of us that they will know we are Christians by our love. Amen.